Sometimes it's really easy to know just by looking at them, but here are some very famous relatives who have worked in the Tamil cinema industry. Alright, this one's pretty much a given. It's a very easy one because everyone knows this, but I'll highlight it. Yuvan Shankar Raja's father is obviously Ilayaraja. His brother is Gangai Amaran, whose sons happen to be Venkat Prabhu and Premji. So Yuvan, Venkat Prabhu, and Premji are all related to each other. This one's obviously a given as well because A.R. Rahman is obviously the uncle to G.V. Prakash Kumar, but also he's an uncle to Bhavani Shree, who happens to be the younger sister of G.V. Prakash Kumar. She has starred in films like Vidudale Part 1 and also will be starring in Part 2 and also starred in Pavakadikar, so pretty cool. So predominantly they're both known as Hindi stars, but also Priyanka Chopra Jonas is now a Hollywood star. But both of these cousins started off their careers in Tamil cinema, ironically. So Priyanka Chopra Jonas started off her career with Tamaran, which starred Vijay in the lead role. And Meera Chopra, who started off her career by the name of Nila, started off with the film Anbe Aruire, which co-stars S.J. Surya in the lead role. Now, both of them are distant cousins to each other, and it's pretty cool that both of them started off their careers in Tamil cinema. Some of you might know this, but some of you might not because they don't really resemble each other at first glance. But Jiva and Jiten Ramesh are actually brothers. So Jiva started off his career in the early 2000s and Jiten Ramesh followed. And even though Jiten Ramesh is not famous anymore in terms of acting, he's gone on to work with their father's company, Supergood Films, and Jiva is still famous till this day. Obviously, at first glance, you probably wouldn't have thought of this or known this, but Prabhudeva and Rajasundaram are actually siblings. Now, they've starred in films together, they've worked on a lot of movies together as dance choreographers and as background dancers. So yeah, both of them have become successful in the Tamil cinema industry and also in Indian cinema industry. Both of them ended up becoming directors. Rajasundaram kind of followed in his brother's footsteps, and both of them are super talented. Many of you know him as a comedian, but actually Satyan started off his career in Tamil cinema as a lead actor. He was a lead actor in 2 films that did really badly, and he shifted his career into becoming a comedian. And he actually starred in some films with his uncle. His uncle happens to be Satyaraj. Even though her mother tongue is Tamil, Vidya Balan became a huge star in Bollywood before debuting in Tamil cinema with the film Nerkonda Parve alongside Ajit. Now, originally, she was supposed to debut as an actress in the film Run, but unfortunately could not have done that film because of unforeseen circumstances and dropped out of that film before entering into Bollywood cinema. Now, her cousin, Priyamani, ended up becoming a big star in Tamil cinema with the film Perithiviran, became an award-winning performer, and it's kind of cool that both of them became big stars in both Bollywood and in Tamil cinema, and both of them have done films in Bollywood and in Tamil cinema. So Vidya Balan was a huge star in Bollywood, did a film in Tamil, and also Priyamani, who was a big star here, ended up becoming a kind of a good performer in Bollywood with films like, Jawan recently. It's kind of a dead giveaway if you look at Vikrant, but he is a relative to Vijay. Now, in the early parts of his career, he was trying to mimic Vijay in terms of his comedy timing and also his acting style, but now he's kind of changed it up. But it's kind of nice to see that he's succeeding now, even though in the early parts of his career, they were trying to push really hard for him to become this next Vijay kind of clone. Obviously now it's not that shocking because, everyone knows this by now, but Rajinikanth is a direct relative to Anirudh through marriage. Now, obviously both of them have teamed up together for many films, and they're going to be teaming up once again for future films as well. And pretty successful combo, and obviously Anirudh idolizes his relative in Rajinikanth and has delivered some of his best music for him. This is probably one of the only times, and probably in world cinema history, where both siblings were number 1 at one point in their respective fields. Now, Nagma was a huge star in the 90s, was in a lot of big movies, and was the number 1 actress at the time. She's actually a half-sibling to Jyotika, who ended up becoming the number 1 performer in Tamil cinema for quite a while alongside Simran. And yeah, kind of cool that both of them ruled the industry in multiple decades, even though obviously Nagma kind of retired in the early 2000s. Once she did, Jyotika kind of took over. So yeah, kind of cool. You might not have known this, but Prashant and Vikram are actually relatives. Now, Prashant was a huge star in the 90s. If you think that Ajit and Vijay are big stars right now, Prashant was equally as big in the 90s. All of his movies were blockbusters or hits. He was super popular to the point where Instead of musicians like A.R. Rahman or Yuven were going on tour, Prashant, the actor, was going on tour. He did like sold out shows in Malaysia and Singapore. And I don't think an actor has done that ever since. It's very interesting. But yeah, ironically, when his stardom was going down, that's when his relative, Vikram, ended up becoming famous. Now, Vikram obviously was struggling in the 90s. He was a dubbing artist. He was a background actor. He was in films, but they weren't hits at all. It wasn't until the 1999 film Seidhu that made him into the star that he is today. Now, obviously, Prashant is not that big anymore. He's still known, but obviously he's not at the 90s height that he was. And Vikram is obviously one of the best performers of his generation and current day, one of the best actors in all of India. And yeah, it would be interesting to see if both of them act in a film in the future, but I don't know if it will happen because in some interviews, Vikram said that he never had help from anyone, even though he had a family member in the industry. Apparently, Prashant didn't help him. So we'll have to wait and see if they do end up working with each other in the future.